Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. And I'm excited to talk about our topic today. I think it's going to be super helpful for people. I have this memory when I first started doing this type of work. I actually would work at psychic fairs and I would go in and do tarot card readings. And so it's all right, Nick.
I thought it was muted.
Gonna cough over our intro. That's all right. We'll just leave that in there to make it more entertaining and fun. People seem to like it when we have a good time. And so, anyways, before Nick injected his opinion on this, I when I first started, I was doing a lot of psychic fairs, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth in this work. I was doing tarot card readings. And I remember at the beginning, the fairs would often start out slower, would be kind of set up, and people would trade with each other. And there was the guy that he was one of the organizers, and really put together guy. And he came and sat down. And he's like, "Oh, I haven't gotten a session with you. I'd love to get one." And so I start to shuffle the cards and lay them out, and I'm like, "Oh," I just felt his parents come in. I said, "Oh, your parents are here." And he got this kind of funny look on his face, and he goes, "Well, that would surprise me." And I said, "Well, there's some stuff that they feel like you need to work through." And he's like, that would surprise me. I've really already worked through all that." And I said, "Well, are they still here? Are they alive?" He goes, "No, they both died in a car accident when I was 18. And I was like, "Oh, huh." He goes, "But I've worked through it." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "How do you work through that? Like, how does there not another layer and then another layer and another layer?" And I was like, "Well, they're here and they want to communicate." And, and a few minutes later, it's tears and, healing and process happening. And it's so interesting for us when we start on this journey and we go, shit's coming up for me. Like, I got to work through this. I'm doing something in my life right now that's confronting me in some way, or there's a person or a situation in my life that's confronting me in some way, and I'm being presented with myself and my past and anything that's unresolved. And I work through it. And I'm at this layer right now of my life where I'm being asked to work through this. And we usually do, right? We find some resolution, we find some clarity and go, "Oh, thank God I've worked through that. Like I can move forward now with this." And absolutely, right? And then we start to feel some stability and we go, "Gosh, you know what? Like, I'm feeling pretty comfortable in my life. I'm ready to," or life feeds us information. The universe gives us our curriculum, and we start to have a new demand or a new growth or a new way of seeing ourselves or a new way we're being pushed on. And then pop, we just cleared another layer of ourselves down to now there's another emerging of a trauma, maybe the same one, maybe a deeper level of it. Maybe it's, like we've just moved into another depth of dealing with it. And then that becomes at our plate. And we go, "Well, shit, I thought I already cleared this. What the hell?" And then we go through the process again and we clear it and go, "Oh, thank God I've cleared that now. Now I can move forward in my life." And then we live life and then we stabilize again and we start to, and the process continues. And, so it's, I think it's such an important understanding of this is that it's not about being done with something. It's not about clearing it. It's about getting really good at knowing what's happening, trusting ourselves, having the tools to clear it, and the ability to maintain our clarity in it, right? And it's funny to me, I realize sometimes when I talk about, "Oh, this is what I'm working on in my life right now," and I think it's weird sometimes for clients to go like, "But you're my coach, you're this channel, you're the psychic. Like, how did you not work through this shit yet? Like, and how does that make you qualified to help me if you're still working through your shit?" I'm like, if I stop working through my shit, I am definitely not qualified to help you. This is a lifelong piece. And the moment we grow and ask more of ourselves and expand and show up bigger and show up more fully and show up with this emerging self, becoming more and more of who we are, like pushes something else to the surface, or we, I was seeing almost like an architectural dig, right, where they dig down like, an inch at a time or 6 inches at a time, and it uncovers stuff. And then they look at that, and then they dig down another 6 inches, and that uncovers stuff. And that's what we're doing. We're just moving away what's not us, getting closer and closer to us. And each time it comes with stuff for us to deal with, and at a greater level. And so, good morning, Nick. I love it when we start out with light conversation. It's like Friday mornings. Let's ease into things with some.
Well, I usually don't interject with such insight.
I didn't want to stop because I feared you'd already shared everything that you wanted to say.
Yeah. I just could not control myself, and I just had to, interject that sound.
Well, thanks for contributing.
Yeah. I may have mentioned One-Eye Mike in the past, but he comes up every once in a while. Like when we're talking.
Mike?
One-Eye Mike, yeah. One-Eye Mike was I met One-Eye Mike when I was working at a pool hall.
Oh yeah, One-Eyed Mike.
One-Eye Mike, yeah. Like, what are you from, Jersey, Nick? I am. And we had a guy.
It's kind of funny. Like at a pool hall, isn't pool all about depth perception? It seems like that'd be kind of a. I guess you could just line right up with the cue.
Yeah, and One-Eye Mike had a glass eye. Yeah, he had a glass eye. Yeah, and he was a great shooter. And
was it an 8-ball? The glass eye? That would have been pretty cool.
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
Also,
Anyways,
yeah,
and not fully committed to the pool.
And that wouldn't work. He played 9-ball a lot, but those are details.
9-ball then, or just a cue ball.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to bounce out and interject. The same level of contribution that you were.
You could have just sneezed.
Anyway, so tell us about One-Eyed Mike.
One-Eyed Mike. So he was teaching me a couple of things, and he goes, so. The conversation was, "Hey, Nikki, you want to get better?" And I was like, "Sure, Mike. Like that's that it's you, me, and an empty room of pool tables. Let's chat, yeah." And so I left the counter, and I go work, shoot at the table, and he goes, "So I'm going to teach you a couple things, but you got to know your game's going to get worse as you work on these skills. Your game's going to your base level game is going to get worse." Well, why? Because you're incorporating these new things into it. You're not good at these new skills, and then you're going to have to get to that level of incorporating and bringing your baseline, and this will be your new baseline. But in the meantime, your game's going to get shitty.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. And when you were talking about like what's the next layer, what's the next layer, like there's this shakeup of like I can't, like I was just good, I was just good, and now I'm feeling a little shaky until that earth sort of crusts over again, and then you have something firm to stand on. But if you don't do that, I mean, like if you never push yourself, I mean, I'm just thinking about surfing. Like if you don't push yourself, it gets really fucking boring, right?
Yeah, but some people prefer the safety over the excitement or over the next level, and it's such an interesting thing. Like. And I see it at times myself where we're just looking for certainty, and the more that we can make it predictable, I would say like the people that get up in the morning, have their cup of coffee, go to work, do their job, come home, have a beer, go to bed, get up, do it again. Like there's a certain amount of predictability in that, and like to me, like that's torture, right? But to other people, that's safety, and to recognize that there's a certain appeal in that. And, the funny thing is, in the last podcast, actually the one that Vivar and I had just recorded, we got into that idea that said, when we go into aligned living, into this work, like we're aligning with ourselves and we're getting really clear about who we are and how we want to operate. And then we start to design our life around that. And the last thing that creates is certainty as far as what we're going to create. What it does create is a certainty of who we are, how we're going to show up in the world, and how we're going to treat ourselves and how we're going to engage with everybody else. Now we have our base. Now we have a certainty that we're engaging with.
Yeah.
But what it's going to create, massive unknown, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting thing when we're not looking for that certainty of what we're creating, but certainty of who we are, certainty of how we're going to show up. Yeah. Because that unknown's already there. We just try to pretend it's not by locking shit down and not changing and not being the same, not being different. And so, it's all just a game that's based on a complete illusion, rather than going, what if I just hone in on me and really see how I want to show up in the world, how I want to be a service, and then let the unknown unfold in front of me to match that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were talking earlier before we hit the record button, and Coach Jeffrey came up in conversation.
Yeah, Coach Jeffrey's awesome.
And I remember.
Do you want to say who he is?
Yeah. So Coach Jeffrey is part of the Bo Eason team, accountability coach, and I think that's how he's labeled. And I mean, that's just the start of it.
He's extremely insightful, visionary. Sees the world through your own lens of personal responsibility and what we're creating. Very similar
cool.
to similar perspective.
Super cool.
And he's my coach now too. I work with him weekly now.
I remember one day chatting with him about the animals and things showing up, and his comment in some context was like, because that's the deal you have with the universe now, with the cosmos, I think is what he referred to it as, which is less sequentially certain, right? It doesn't map necessarily to climbing that corporate ladder. It may also be climbing the corporate ladder. Who knows? Depending on the ladder in the corporation.
But that's not the focus. The focus is your own growth, your own expansion.
Right.
That may be a byproduct of the focus.
That's right. Yeah. Where sometimes, the artificial, tangible goal, because 100, because CEO, corporate ladder, whatever it may be, could actually be a limitation to expression and experiences.
Often is.
Yeah. So going in the right direction and then having the experiences along the way, and you collect what you collect, having a good time, seems way better than this one thing that you tie your horse to, tie your cart to. Oh God, what's the phrase?
Hook onto.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have clients who are coaches who their client base are high-level executives who hate their lives. They're like, I got these golden handcuffs. Like I've invested this much. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't enjoy it. There's like, I was just so busy trying to get to this place. I'm here. I don't want to be here. I'm not sure how to get out. I'm not sure what else to do. I'm asleep inside, and I had to go to sleep inside and put aside all the parts of me that were vibrant and alive in order to get here.
Yeah.
And now I got here and realized, like, shit, like now that I'm not on this chase anymore, that's just like, I'm so not happy. Like I'm not fulfilled. I'm not excited about life. I realized I had to shut down so much of me in order to achieve this, and I don't want it. So help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I mean, I relate to some of that.
I have clients that are that too. It's like it's just, but it's funny. I have clients that specialize in coaching that.
Yeah. I mean, I relate to some of that. And there's certain aspects of taking the joy out of what you're doing that could lead you down, and you could be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any joy associated with it, and it's bad programming, emotional triggers, whatever it may be, pushing you to do the work, it's the wrong thing, even though it's the right thing sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I might have even told this story in the last podcast, but I'm just getting a hit to tell it again. And I know I've told it on here probably several times. This client that came to me, who was a corporate guy, and his wife had been working with me, and she was getting all this out of it. And so he's like, all right, I'll go do it. Skeptical, sit down, seemingly kind of dense, but not really. Underneath all that protection was this really tapped in dude. And we did a session. This was even before Aligned Living, where we just lit him up, and he's, in this higher state of consciousness, and he leaves like, just like I feel amazing. And he texts me. He's like, or I think he left me a voice message or whatever. He goes, man, on the way home, I drove by Elk Meadows, this big giant meadow. And I looked out across it, and it was so beautiful. It was so vibrant. Like I just felt like there was just life coming out of everything. And I felt so alive. Like, thank you. Like I feel absolutely amazing. And then I didn't hear from him again. And he had to like just try to shove all that stuff back in the package it came in. so that he could go back into his corporate job. And it was really, and I don't think that that's what you need to do. I think that you can actually, like, doesn't mean you need to leave your work, but it means that you shift. And we talked about this with you, right? You shift, you change. Now all of a sudden you may be doing the same task, but you're doing them from a very different place in a very different way with a very different intention.
Yeah.
And now you get to be alive in that experience rather than having to shut it down and be dead inside in order to do it.
Or do things for different clients or whatever, right? I mean, I'm currently working on like a small entrepreneur package, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking to people and I want to work with them and my current structure doesn't work. So like solopreneurs, like I want to help them out. And so it's a very open dialogue around, I think this could work. Would this work for you? And let's talk about that.
You mean where you can take all your offerings and just find the right suite of options that work for them?
Yeah. I'm addressing the immediate needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little
move the dial.
A little less holistic because than I typically do because of resource constraints, because budget constraints. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing some of it. Like we actually should be doing some of it.
Yeah. And if it moves the dial, it moves the dial. Yeah.
Right. And then we have another conversation after that. But like let's not say it doesn't work for reasons. Let's talk about how we can actually get a thing done together to get the result that we're looking for.
And I think it's a great metaphor for how often we're just kind of handcuffed in thinking that things are the way they are, versus the idea that, and when we're out in the problem, in that trying to make decisions from that discomfort make decision making.
Yeah.
Like we have zero creativity. We just moving a couple parts around, but when we set it down and go into our alignment and go into this flow, all of a sudden there's what seems like miraculous solutions appear, but they were just outside of our awareness before because we were stuck inside the problem.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, oh, shit can flow. Like, oh, this does work for me.
Yeah.
But I was afraid to look because I was afraid that the answer I was going to get was this doesn't work for me. Now I feel 10 times worse or 100 times worse, or I feel stuck even more.
They seem to be either extremely available or 100% absent.
Yeah. And that's consciousness. And it's a weird thing to say, but just think about, like, when you're in a good mood, what feels available to you? If you're in a bad mood, what feels available to you?
That's right.
And the same thing is like when we lift up and go, oh, I'm seeing all these options. I always say our multiple choice bank absolutely changes and what we feel is available to us. And, and so, bring this back to the I guess our topic of the day, which is, when we're always next leveling, when we're taking ourselves forward, new stuff emerges for us to challenge ourselves with, or the same thing at another level of it. And when we just see it that way, is just kind of part of the task of being part of growth, that it's not something attacking us. It's not something, that we should have resolved. It's just like, oh yeah, I've cleared another layer. And now these are the parts that are on my plate to work through. And it's extremely important that I do, because otherwise I just have this clear layer, except for the shit that I don't like, except for the stuff that makes me feel uncomfortable. And if I don't face that and deal with it, then, like, what am I growing for? And some people keep trying to grow and grow without dealing with those things until they're forced to deal with them. But if we deal with them each and are just honest with ourselves, saying that, yeah, there's still more work for me to do here. Of course there is. That's what it looks like. And each time we clear, instead of just, okay, let me get another layer of expansion. And I think this is one of the challenges that some people run into with plant medicine. And I think plant medicine, I've said before, it has its place. It can be fantastic. But people that are just doing it without doing the integration work, they're going to have a crash.
Yeah.
Because they're like, another layer of me, another layer of me, another layer of me, but didn't deal with the monster. And all of a sudden now they're like 10 layers in of expansion and 10 layers of monster that they haven't dealt with. And they crash.
I think you're being extremely generous with the expansion. I think it's a lot of dipping your toes in it, or maybe dunking in it, and then coming out and then realizing there's a possibility for the expansion, but then
I think experiencing it in that moment too, and then going back to need it. But once that's in our awareness and go, I could be that. But then we get attachment and go, if I do this, I can be that, versus, oh, I can actually clear this out and I can be that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, like, it hits everybody a little different. I think some people do expand and then have a healing crisis because they didn't deal with the part, and they're that much more aware of it and they're that much more clear. And some people, like, just keep having to get back in the pool, and thinking that that's the only way they're going to access it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like getting dropped at the top of the mountain and pretending you did the training to get there. You didn't, right? Like, but now you sort of need to.
Yeah, and like, well, now you're at camp 1, or I mean, you're at the summit, and you didn't go through the 4 camps of acclimation.
That's right.
You know, like there's a reason that people go up and down the mountain, up and down the mountain. They're acclimating. You know, and it's very similar to that. That's a great analogy, right? Of like if you just dropped off at the summit, like, well, you better have your oxygen things that you can breathe, and you better get a ride back down again because you know you haven't done the training in order to
right. You have no idea how to get down because you had no idea how you got up, but you're there.
And sorry, helicopters can't fly that high.
Yeah. So, always more.
And it's not a bad thing.
It's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when we can just accept that as part of the process, that it's like, okay, so what is it that I'm going to need to work through as I expand into this, rather than like, oh shit, I think it's coming. Oh no, I think it's like, oh fuck, there's something coming, versus like, of course there is. Like, this is what it looks like, and this is exciting. I want this, so I'm going to deal with that. Yeah. And it's very direct. It's very clear. But the moment we go, I already cleared that. Why is it coming up again? You know, it's like, because we just dug deeper. We took the archaeological dig and went down another foot, and now there's more exposed. So let's take care of it. And if you need help taking care of it, we have this great system.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, yeah. And if you need help exposing it, really.
Oh, that's true too. Right?
And then looking at it through that lens that helps it easily move comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which to me, like, that's so exciting about that part of what we do, right? Because this shit that's underneath the surface, it's even affecting us when we don't see it. Like, it's our unconscious, it's driving
even
us
more
to do
so.
all these things, you know, and then, you know, we go, oh, like, I didn't want to do that because now I have to deal with this thing. Like, oh, you mean you see it, this thing that's been controlling you your whole life. Now you're aware of it controlling you instead of just being controlled by it. That's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction. But we go, you know, it's kind of nice when I didn't know it was controlling me. I thought it was what I wanted. Really? Well, why didn't you want the thing you created after you created it then if it was what you wanted? Well, because I created it because I hadn't dealt with the thing that was making me think I wanted that. Does that make sense? Did that track?
Yeah, I tracked it. So that's some spider web shit right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's so often people are like, how often have we created things we don't want? And the reason we created them is because we were driven by some discomfort, trying to alleviate that discomfort, and try to, once I create this, then I'll be okay. This thing won't bother me. Versus, I just need to dig deeper, discover more of myself, and clear out those illusions, those stories, those coping mechanisms, those trauma responses, and now I get the freedom. The freedom doesn't come from creating something that covers up all the shit.
Yeah,
you know, it's like I'm just seeing this big paint roller, like, you know, putting lipstick on the pig thing, going, oh my god, it looks so good. Like, you can't paint dirt, you know, like, it doesn't work. You can't paint mud.
I've literally tried doing that. It doesn't work. It doesn't.
Yeah. That's I remember when I was a teacher. One of the custodian guys came by. And he was like, I'm like, hey, how's your day going? He goes, good. You know, just you know, painting the turd again today. You know, like he was doing something to touch up the side of the building. He was painting the turd. You know, like, I think it's time for a new building, but instead we'll just paint the turd.
You get sand in there, you get rocks in there, you get hair in there. You got to clean that surface. Yeah. It's no good.
Hopefully spray paint, not a roller. That's a little better, at least.
That's true.
It's an even distribution.
Yeah.
So anyways, I hope we inspired you to go deeper and to recognize what this is that's coming up. And I think it's something that should be talked about more, because people are always like, you know, like, I had this expansion, but then this other thing showed up. Well, you mean like the part that comes with the expansion?
Oh, not
the predictability,
not household handiwork. Same thing, maybe.
Yeah, but when we just let it be like the process and it goes hand in hand, we go, okay, great. So what else are we exposing that is our own bullshit that we need to just, dissolve and own and reclaim the part of ourselves that was intertwined in that,
Yeah.
and let that free up, because
Yeah.
it is all about freedom. And if we get bigger and more expansive, but we don't feel the freedom, like we just become, it's like that feeling of feeling even more capable, but not being able to do anything with it,
That's
feeling
right.
more strong, but not being able to do anything with it. Because the truth is, those parts that we're stuck with, those things that we haven't worked through, are also us. And so when we go to do these things and try to overpower it, like we can't overpower ourselves. Like the harder we push, the harder we push back. And so it's not about force; it's about intention. Because it's I wrestled myself. It was a draw. Like, well, of course it was. Like, you're both parts of you are going as hard as they possibly can. Like, nobody's going to win. You're just going to tie up all your energy to it and exhaust yourself, recover, and then try again, versus going like, well, this is what it looks like. Let me just get really compassionate with myself. Let me get really clear. Let me just see it in a more matter of fact, from a higher consciousness way, instead of entangled in it, and go, oh, cool. Like there's more of me to resolve. And I'm so excited, because that means there's more expansion. If we don't expand, we don't have more to resolve.
That can make a nice title or description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. When we expand, we have more to resolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Awesome. Well, great conversation. Yeah. As always, man. Awesome.
chat.
Well, thanks so much for listening, and have a great week. And I hope you have a lot to resolve, because then you've expanded. Congratulations. Have a great week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.